The conference room on the 14th floor of Halcyon Group's Nashville headquarters had floor-to-ceiling windows that faced the Cumberland River, and on the morning of the regional vendor showcase, the river was doing what rivers in Tennessee do in April, running high and brown from the spring rains, moving with a kind of muscular indifference to the city around it. 12 vendor representatives were scheduled to present that morning. 11 of them were in suits. One of them was not. Clete Morrison arrived at 9:15 in a pair of Carhartt work pants that had genuine dirt on the knee from a job site he'd come from at 6 that morning, a flannel shirt that had been ironed once, possibly in 2019, and boots that told the story of a man who spent the majority of his professional life not in conference rooms. He was 54 years old, with the kind of face that a long life outdoors produces, weathered without being harsh, the lines of it suggesting more laughter than hardship. He carried a cardboard tube under one arm and a laptop bag that had a small American flag pin on the strap and a crack along one corner that had been repaired with electrical tape. He signed in at the reception desk. The receptionist gave him his badge. He took a seat in the waiting area. At 9:22, the CEO of Halcyon Group walked through the lobby. Her name was Diana Voss. She was 47 years old and had built Halcyon from a regional construction consulting firm into a $200 million infrastructure development company over 19 years of decisions that were sometimes right and sometimes costly, and always deliberate. She was known in the industry for precision, the kind of leader who read every contract herself and asked the questions that other executives delegated away. She was also, on this particular Tuesday morning, running 12 minutes late, carrying 2 coffees, and not in the mood for a vendor showcase that her VP of operations had scheduled without consulting her calendar. She walked through the lobby and she saw Clete Morrison sitting in the waiting area. The Carhartts, the flannel, the cracked laptop bag, and she laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly, a private laugh, the kind that escapes before you've decided to let it go. A brief, involuntary expression of the gap between what she'd expected and what she saw. She caught it quickly, but not quickly enough. Clete saw it. He had the particular attentiveness of someone who has spent decades reading job sites and the people on them, and he registered the laugh the way he registered most things, without reaction, filed away, moved on. He had been laughed at before. It was never, in his experience, the people who laughed at you that you needed to worry about. It was the problem in front of you. The showcase ran in 30-minute slots. Clete was last. He watched 11 presentations from the back of the room. They were, without exception, polished. Slide decks with corporate fonts and 3D rendered graphics, and the kind of language that had been focus grouped into maximum impressiveness. Digital modeling, integrated project management platforms, value-engineered solutions. Each presenter wore the confidence of someone who understood the room they were in. Clete took notes on a legal pad. At 12:40, Diana's assistant called his name. He walked to the front of the room. He set his cardboard tube on the table. He opened his laptop, which took slightly longer than everyone else's to boot. He did not apologize for this. "My name is Clete Morrison," he said. "I run Morrison Structural Assessment out of Cookeville, Tennessee. We've been doing bridge and infrastructure integrity assessment for 22 years. I'm going to take about 20 minutes, and I'm going to spend most of it on one project, because I think it's the one that matters for what you're trying to do." He opened the cardboard tube. He unrolled a large physical drawing, an engineering schematic, hand-annotated in 3 colors of ink, with reference numbers in the margins that corresponded to a spreadsheet he pulled up on his laptop. "This is the Hartley Creek overpass on the I-40 corridor near Cookeville," he said. "You submitted an RFP last fall for structural assessment on 7 highway overpasses in the Cumberland Plateau region. Hartley Creek is one of them. I drove it last week." He clicked to a photograph, then another, then another. The room, which had been in the polite half-attention of a group nearing the end of a long morning, shifted. The photographs showed what no slide deck had shown that morning. The actual condition of an actual structure. Spalling concrete on the pier caps. Hairline fractures in the deck slab, photographed at close range with a scale reference. A drainage failure at the expansion joint that had been allowing water intrusion for what the staining pattern suggested was at least 4 years. The digital assessment submitted by the state DOT last year rated this structure as satisfactory, Clete said. I would rate it as requiring immediate intervention on 2 of these failure points and monitoring on 4 others. The difference between those 2 assessments is about 2 years and approximately 1 moderate freeze-thaw cycle. The room was quiet. Diana Voss, who had been sitting at the far end of the table with the posture of someone concluding a long meeting, had straightened almost imperceptibly. "You drove the structure," she said. "Last week, before this presentation." "I drive every structure I'm going to talk about," Clete said. "Otherwise, I'm just talking about a number on a form." "The other 6 structures on the RFP," she said. "Have you driven those?" "5 of them. I couldn't get access to the 6th. There's a property dispute on the approach road. I noted that in my written submission." He paused. "I also noted that the 6th one is the least critical of the 7 based on traffic load data and original construction date. So if the access issue isn't resolved before assessment, it's the one I'd defer." A silence. Tell us in the comments where in the world you are listening to this story from. If HeartLine Stories has moved you today, please like, subscribe, and share this channel. Every subscriber tells us to keep bringing stories like this. Now, back to the room. And what happened when Diana Voss asked the question nobody else had thought to ask? "Why does the DOT assessment say satisfactory?" she said. It was the right question. The room knew it was the right question, from the way it landed, with the weight of something that had been present all along, waiting to be named. Clete looked at her steadily. Because the DOT assessment was a visual inspection from the road surface. You can't see the pier cap spalling from the road surface. You have to get under it. He clicked to another photograph, taken from below the bridge deck, clearly requiring equipment or significant effort to obtain. I went under it. Diana looked at the photograph. She looked at Clete. She said in a voice that had shifted from the executive register she'd been operating in all morning to something flatter and more direct. "What's your crew size?" 3 people, including me, my son, and a structural engineer I've worked with for 14 years. 3 people, she said. "We move fast because we don't carry anything we don't need," Clete said. "And we don't miss things because we don't look from the road." The VP of Operations, a man named Greg, who had organized the showcase and who had been watching this exchange with the expression of someone recalibrating rapidly, said, "Your bid came in significantly under the others." "Because I don't have a marketing department," Clete said. He was not unkind about it. He was simply precise. Diana asked him 4 more questions. He answered each one without hesitation, without slides, without jargon, from a position of knowledge so thorough that it had the quality of ground you could stand on. When he left the room, Diana sat for a moment. Greg said, "He's not what we usually—" "I know," Diana said. "That's the point." She thought about the laugh. She thought about the Carhartts and the flannel and the laptop that had taken a moment to boot. She thought about the photograph taken from beneath the bridge deck, the image of a man who had gotten under a structure that 11 other vendors had described from a distance. She thought about the Hartley Creek overpass and the 2 failure points and the freeze-thaw cycle. She thought about what happens when a bridge that should have been rated critical is rated satisfactory, and who was responsible for the gap between those 2 words, and what the gap costs when it closes in the wrong direction. She called Greg from the elevator on her way back to her office. "Award the contract to Morrison Structural," she said. "All 7 structures. And get me a meeting with the state DOT contact for the Cumberland Plateau region. Tell them I'd like to discuss assessment methodology." "The meeting with DOT?" Greg said carefully. "Is that about the contract?" "It's about the bridge," Diana said. "The contract is a separate matter." Clete Morrison received the award letter the following Thursday. He read it in the cab of his truck in the parking lot of a Cookeville hardware store, having come from a job site, in his Carhartts, in the rain. He called his son first. His son, who was 28 and had been working assessments with his father since he was 19, and who understood the business from the ground up in the most literal sense, said, "All 7? "All 7, Clete said. "What changed their mind?" Clete thought about the photograph under the bridge deck. He thought about the 14 months he had spent driving every structure before he quoted it. He thought about 22 years of showing up and getting underneath things and telling the truth about what he found. "I went under the bridge," he said. His son was quiet for a moment. Then he said, in the voice of someone who has heard a version of this lesson many times and is finally hearing it fully, "Yeah, that's it, isn't it?" "That's always it," Clete said. He started the truck. The rain was coming harder now, the kind of spring rain that the Cumberland Plateau does without apology, and the road back to the job site was already running with it. He pulled out of the parking lot and drove toward it. A note worth carrying with you: the bridges we drive over every day are assessed and maintained by systems that depend on people willing to get underneath them, literally and figuratively. If you ever notice something concerning about a structure in your community, a crack, unusual staining, movement that doesn't seem right, most states have a DOT reporting line. One phone call costs nothing, and the person who makes it might be the reason the assessment changes from satisfactory to critical before the freeze-thaw cycle does it for everyone. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that the most valuable knowledge is the kind earned by getting close enough to the truth to see it clearly, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you have a story of your own, write to us at heartlinestories4@gmail.com. Every heart has a story worth telling. This is HeartLine Stories, where yours matters.